Don't worry, I'm not going to use my awesome sign language for the rest of this video. I was tempted to actually be quiet mode for this entire review. I don't want to flex on you guys like that. Don't act like you didn't like it. I bet you didn't know I could do that shit. Like I said before, this movie was directed by John Krasinski. And John Krasinski, I always kind of looked at him as that funny guy from The Office, and I've never really taken him seriously in anything else he's been in. Not to say that he hasn't been good in those other things he's done, but that's just always how I look at him. But in this movie, he disappears and becomes a completely different kind of person, both as an actor and from a directing standpoint. I absolutely love the way that this film was directed. This film utilizes a lot of tension, and it utilizes sound to great effect. Sound in this movie is such a focus, and there's such a premium put on what kind of sounds people can make and what kind of sounds people can't make, that it elevates the tension of the project as a whole. It basically turns sound into its own weapon in this movie, and every single scene that is emphasized to the nth degree, to the point that you just can't help but be on the edge of your seat for this shit. There's not really a wasted frame or a wasted shot in this movie. When the action is going down and when the monsters are on screen, he makes sure that you are right there in the thick of it and you feel like you're right there with the characters in this dangerous situation. And also the creature design, it freaked me out. It shook me. I was terrified by those things. Seriously, the creature design in this one, really love the way these things look, and they're not in the movie a whole lot, but they do show up. This isn't one of those things where they show their shadow and, you know, they don't really reveal them. No, they play a big role in the movie. This is a monster movie after all. The performances are all incredible. The kid actors are really good in this one, and usually in a movie like this, the kid actors can either sink or swim, depending on the director. One of the best performances in the movie is by a girl who I believe is deaf in real life. John Krasinski actually pushed to put a real-life deaf girl in the role of his daughter in this movie. A movie that emphasizes nonverbal communication. I thought that was a nice touch, and it added some authenticity to this film. The powerhouse standout performances of the film have to be Emily Blunt and John Krasinski. Again, there's no sound in this movie. Like, people can't talk. People can't say anything. We take that shit for granted in real life. So in this movie, you have to have actors who can emote. You have to have actors that can pull off a lot of non-verbal emotion. John Krasinski does this well, and Emily Blunt, she steals the show for me. There are certain intense moments in this movie where Emily Blunt, honestly, is kind of Oscar-worthy. The emoting was fantastic. The emphasis on communicating without sound. You get to see a lot of really cool things that this family has done to survive in this post-apocalyptic world. I love that this world feels very lived in. I love the fact that there's not a whole bunch of explanation or exposition given to explain what these things are, where they came from, or how the rest of the world is dealing with it. And you get little hints and tidbits throughout the film that tell you a little bit about what's happening, but you don't really get that big exposition dump that a lot of movies like this would have forced on you. John Krasinski understands that the focus needs to be on this family and their relationship and their survival in this world, and it lets us fill in the gaps with our imagination. I'd probably say that the first part of the movie is a little bit slow, but that's because it's building the characters, building them up into people that you care about, and you do care a lot about these characters. For a sci-fi, horror, thriller, hybrid movie, this movie has a lot of emotional character development in it. This movie has a lot of tragic things that are happening to this family, and you get to see how the tragic events of this movie and of this situation have affected each family member in different ways. I love the musical score in this film. It was really great stuff, but the sound design is the thing that I feel like I need to single out the best. Honestly, I don't see how this movie doesn't win an Oscar next year for sound design or sound mixing or sound editing or any of those three. Because this movie utilizes sound to such a great effect and such a great extent. It makes you, the audience, focus more on sound. It makes you, the audience, focus more on what you're hearing and what you're not hearing. This movie is essentially a very terrifying version of The Quiet Game, and John Krasinski and the acting and the sound design, the musical score, the cinematography, all of that elevates this movie to being one of the best thrillers that I've seen in a really long time. Having said that, there are a couple of moments that don't work in this film, namely that have to do with jump scares. There's a couple of jump scares in here that are kind of unnecessary, that are the false kind, that kind of make me roll my eyes whenever I watch them in horror movies. One in particular that involves a raccoon where I'm just like, really? You've got all this great tension and suspense build up and you're gonna throw a fucking raccoon in? Okay. I see how we're gonna do this. Also, a couple of things that I don't think landed logic-wise. There are a few things that I wish they had explained a little bit. I can't really get into it because it would be spoilers. Quiet Place is one of the most suspenseful movies of the year with terrific performances, outstanding direction and camera work, sound design, the music, everything about this movie is A1. No further words, here is my rating for A Quiet Place.